see some familiar faces in here today. So super excited to talk a little bit more to some of you and for the first time to some of you as well. For a formal introduction's sake, I'm Christina. I'm on the recruiting team here at Fast Enterprises. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm actually here to train Aaliyah. She's a little bit newer to our team, so I'm gonna let her take over and I'm gonna hop in the back, but feel free to ask any questions at the end. I'll come back up as well.
Awesome. So I'm Aaliyah. Like she said, I'm new to the recruiting team. I'm doing some training, very hands-on. I work at our headquarters in Colorado, and I'm a recent graduate. Ben, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Ben Johnson. I'm actually alum from Eastern, 2017. I also am in Colorado at headquarters. I'm right now currently leading our fraud identification verification services team. So that's kind of been a fun change for me. And yeah, I use he, him pronouns.
Awesome. So Fast Enterprises is an IT software consulting company really focused on modernizing government software. So we really want to take some of these decades old systems and kind of bring them to the future. So if we want to proceed that. Awesome. So we kind of have our fast core products that we have 4 product lines out of. So the first one is our Gen Tax, and that was first implemented in British Columbia in 1999. Our second one is unemployment insurance in California in 2009. Our third was in Arkansas in 2011. It's our driver services, vehicle services. And then our last, most recent one is in New Zealand in 2021. It's our child support engagement. And we recently just implemented the CSCD product in Alaska as well. So that's super exciting. We didn't just we started in these states, but we don't only work in these states now. So we now work in any of the states in blue. We are almost at all 50 states. So something really unique to Fast is that we relocate our full-time employees every 2 to 3 years. And then we relocate our interns for their entire minimum 12-week internship over the summer. And they'll be at one of our sites in the mainland US as well. So kind of what do we do and what do our full-time and intern positions kind of look like? So we're really looking for a mix of those technical skills as well as a consulting client-facing side of things. So for our technical skills, our older versions of our systems are in VB.net, and we're kind of making a big lift to try and update all of these to C#. And then our database is in that SQL Server. For the client-facing side, we're looking for people with those good communication skills. You could be working with clients every day, and we're on site in person, making sure that we're really getting client needs, assessing them, and implementing them into the software so that it's making their jobs easier, more efficient, and more streamlined. So right now we're hiring for our implementation consultant and implementation intern. The internship is very indicative of the full-time position. Basically, if you're at a site and there's not an IC there, then you would be doing the same work that they would have been doing. So very hands-on, really, really great experience if you're trying to get into this kind of field. So why would you choose Fast? There are 5 main things, and I think the first thing for me is definitely the people. Anyone you ask will probably say the same thing. We do a lot of team building outside of the work environment because we do require that relocation. You might be in a new site where you don't know many people, and there's probably other people at your site that are in the same boat. So that team building is a huge aspect. Ben, what has been one of your favorite outside of work team building events?
Oh man, we do a lot. I definitely would say the top ones that I have been doing was top golf, whitewater rafting, and probably paintballing. Those were all really fun experiences. But I think one of the cool things to do it, especially since we see all over the United States with us moving time to time. I'm a pretty big foodie, so I like being able to see the new restaurants in town and kind of being able to enjoy with all my friends at work.
Awesome, yeah. So obviously the people is a great benefit, but more tangible benefits we do have a sabbatical program where every 8 years you get a month paid vacation or sabbatical to pursue your passions and pursue kind of have a rest and recharge period. Other benefits we have employer paid health, vision, and dental. So I know you may not be thinking about that right now, but in the future, it's really nice knowing that I don't have to pay for those premiums. They're not coming out of my paycheck. My employer has me covered through that. Another great benefit is that we do get to see the world. We saw that map. We're in almost all 50 states. You get to travel a lot with our positions and see a lot of the mainland US. it's also really rewarding work. You know, you're living in the communities that you're affecting with this software and these systems. So it's nice to maybe be working on something at work and then being able to see that changes as a user at the DMV or something of that nature. Another thing is that FAST has been on time and on budget with every single project we've taken on. We're very proud of that statistic. It's not one you find very often in the tech world. So that's a mixture of us setting realistic timelines with our clients and making sure our workers and employees kind of can meet those targets on time. And also, you know, creating a culture where we know everyone is going to pitch in and really put in that work. So tomorrow we will be at the career fair. It's 11 to 3 p.m. in the field house on the Cheney campus. So I know it's a little bit longer of a commute to the Cheney campus, but we would love for you to stop by if you're planning on going. Can I answer any really quick questions?
How many of you knew there was a fair tomorrow? How many of you are already planning to go? How many of you are looking for jobs or internships? Okay, so everyone with your hands up should be potentially planning to attend the career fair, connect with employers. There's also a C-STEM networking mixer tonight in Cheney?
Yes.
Cheney tonight from 5 to 7. So we'll also be there with some other employers in a more informal setting to answer questions as well. So we'd love to have you stop by.
Yeah, and then if you do come up with any other questions and you can't make it, both of our emails are on there right now. You can email Christina or me, and we can definitely field some more of those questions or concerns. Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right. I definitely recommend doing this career fair. I think that starting with this upcoming summer, a lot of you at this place in the CS curriculum, if you already have an internship lined up or have done something in the past, that you should really be considering getting your name out there, getting some real world experience. A lot of times that opens a lot of doors that will lead to potential, even if you don't end up with a position with that company, you end up with technical experience that you wouldn't have otherwise had. You end up with making connections that can lead to letters of recommendation, that can lead to other opportunities. If you reach back out to them, they may say, we're not hiring right now, but we know some people who are, and they can help you to be able to interface with the job market. In today's day and age, it's more and more and more who you know and what you can do than what degree you hold or anything that's just on a piece of paper. So figuring out anything you can do to advocate for yourself in the process, get that experience inside or outside of a classroom setting. That's good. For today's lab, I kind of want to do what we did a couple of weeks ago and go through a design exercise. Before I do that, I want to give a little bit better introduction to some of the Sprint 2 requirements, as well as what this is actually going to look like when you're actually going to do this. And there's a bit of ambiguity there. I've heard from a number of people that there are some confusions about that. So I want to do what I can to squash those. And then I will give the opportunity to meet with each group. And I will let you as a group decide whether you would like to meet with me or not. If you'd like the extra time to just get some stuff done, that's understandable. If you'd like to go through a design exercise with me, draw out your ideas for what you want to do with this, get my feedback on that, I am happy to do that. And I'll try to split the remaining time in about 5 for the 5 groups that we have. So for working on a GUI, I know a lot of you have not actually worked with GUIs in the past. So what is a GUI? What are we going to be looking for in this window that is going to be popping up with something? What's the actual design? What are we looking for here? So there's going to be some window that is going to be everything that the project contains. Within this, you're going to have to come up as a group with the design of what do you want the layout of this window to be like? How are we going to keep the user in mind as we are trying to figure out how can we make this as efficient as possible. There are lots of things to consider. So we're gonna have a graphical representation of each of these classes in a UML diagram. So you can imagine that when the user adds a class, we're gonna add a class that we're gonna call foo. It's gonna make some box in here with a title foo. And it's gonna have a place to store some fields and a place to store some methods. You could decide that this is a pretty big box. Maybe we want to make this box really small at the start, and only once the user adds some fields or some methods, only then are we going to create these spaces for fields and for methods. So this is gonna start looking like an actual UML in a UML diagram or UML editor that you would actually use on the internet or as a standalone program. Maybe we make another one now called bar, and we have. If we draw a relationship now between foo and bar, what is the logic going to look like now for this? There are now 4 relationship types that you need to be able to specify. So maybe you do something like, we're gonna have a connection between foo and bar that is composition. So we would have something that looks like this, that says composition between foo and bar. Great, that looks okay, but we've also filled up over half the screen with 2 classes. If we want the user to be able to add more than about 4 classes and some relationships between those classes, maybe we need something that is gonna scale this UI. Maybe if I try to add more than 4 classes, we're going to zoom out. Maybe we want to allow the user to have a scroll bar to zoom in or out, maybe buttons that allow them to click that to zoom in, to zoom out. Something you need to consider is, you want this to be usable for many different kinds of projects. So in your design, as you're talking to your group, figure out how do you want to solve this problem of allowing the user to put arbitrarily complicated UML diagrams into this UML editor in a way that is visible and scalable. The other option is the user interface. How are they actually going to be specifying, I want to add a class with the name foo? The old-fashioned version of this would have some kind of menu at the top where we would have a, I don't know, there's always a file menu. Maybe there's a file up here. Maybe there is a class menu up here. Maybe there is, you start figuring out, what different menus could there be? When you click on this, it creates a drop down. From within this, you can select from a number of things of how I want to, within a class, I want to add, I want to add a field to this class. Within, I don't know, however you want to set this up, lots of different ways. I don't want to make you think in a particular direction because I want this to be a design exercise. Another option is that you could do something like split the screen right here. And now there's a smaller space, but now maybe you have something that allows the user to maybe have a button that expands into options for what they want to do with a class, a button that expands into what they want to do with particular fields or methods. And you could now have some kind of design where if I click this, this now compresses and allows it to either be space for this. Maybe there is a plus or minus button up here that allows this all to go away or to come or to pop in. You have lots of different possible ways that you could create something that is easy to use. What you do is completely up to you and your group, but again, those 2 main things that we're going to be thinking about for our client meeting is it usable and is it scalable? Is it obvious from the client's perspective? How do I add a class? Especially with something that's visual like this, you don't want to read a long help menu about how to interface with it. It should feel intuitive. I should know where to go without referring to something because it's there visually. Maybe you have some kind of tutorial that when you first launch the program or say, give me a tutorial, pops up something over here that says, click this to do this, click this to do that, and then something that shows the user how to use the program. Let's see, other considerations. One thing that people will run into is you add classes in a certain order and you add relationships between those classes in a certain order. Those relationships are going to look really ugly. So think about your relationship arrow design. Do you want to have diagonal arrows? If you have diagonal arrows between things, then you're gonna have to worry about things like, if I have a connection to this, is there already a connection? Do I want there to be, do I wanna force it to be vertical here? Do I want to be able to go directly into the class of some sort? In which case you're gonna have to figure out, how do I rotate each of these shapes in order to get them at the appropriate angle so that they match with the line? That's something you're gonna have to figure out as part of your design. It looks kind of ugly when we have these arrows crossing like this. If we have enough of this, it's gonna be kind of hard to read. Again, these are the later issues that you're gonna wanna focus on, get that initial functionality working first. And then let's talk about kind of what should you expect to have ready for the client meeting in a week? What do you want to show off? The client is mostly going to be interested in the usability of this. So think about from a UI perspective, how can you design the UI and show it off to the client? What can you push off to the end that is functionality that's not really going to get the client's feedback of, I like this design or I don't like this design. You do not have to have everything ready by next week, but have enough at least of the UI for the client to be able to play around with it and give you feedback about, when I add 4 classes to this, it gets a little bit crowded. When I add 4 relationships, I don't really like how the relationships are working together. I think you should do this instead of that. It's okay if, for instance, we can't add 10 fields to this yet. It's okay if we can't add 10 methods to this yet. Push that off to the end, add the base functionality of just, can we represent some classes? Can we represent some relationships and some arrows? Even if these get populated with arbitrary fields and methods, randomly generate whatever goes here. It's fine for the client meeting. Questions about kind of the design, what this should look like, what the window looks like? How to get started, yeah.
So, and then there should be an option to switch back to command line if the user wants to, and if the user wants to click on it and it closes this window, it brings up the other one.
So the only functionality that is required is that if we maybe click on the file menu and go down to save. I save this UML in this state. I should be able to open it up in the command line version. I shouldn't have a button necessarily that says switch to the command line version. But when I save this in the GUI version, load up the command line version and load in this command line, it should work in the CLI. And vice versa. If I were to make all of this without their placements and relationship arrows drawn in the CLI, because the CLI doesn't have the associated placements of these classes and their fields and methods and what their relationship arrows look like. If I were to load a file that was made in the command line in the GUI, there should be some default way to populate the GUI with image representations of the data that was made in the CLI. Yeah,
So if that, might be a stupid question.
fine.
So because relationships, which is the arrows, have types. I can just load it in and look at the type and then put the arrows in by that.
Correct. Yeah, so the actual symbol of what's gonna go here, what should be drawn, what it is based on the relationship type. So yes, absolutely. There will be further refinements to this idea in later sprints. There will be requirements for how to start making this look better. So get that basic functionality working now. And remember that I've seen this across a number of groups with Sprint 1. This is all about the process. The actual grade item is about how you're communicating, the evidence. Are you using Git? Are you using all of this? Even if you get half the features working for this, that's still an A. You can still have a maximum of about 93 points if you get half the features working.
You shouldn't have told me that.
We're getting to working. So I think we saw a lot of stress and focus on making sure that you got every single feature working in Sprint 1 without as much focus on the process and making sure that we were interfacing with the process correctly. So if we want to maximize the grades on the rubric for this, focus on the agile process, focus on developing this in a team. If you are all working together and you don't produce something that you are incredibly proud of, it only has half the functionality that you wanted. As long as you're going through that process, your grade will reflect that. If you work by yourself and drag the rest of your team along through the finish line of getting all of the features working, but you weren't working together as a team, you weren't following the agile process, your grade will be worse than if you found a way to work together and didn't get everything done and adhered to the agile process. That's the real outcome from this class.
Good to know.
The features are 15 out of 100 points. Think about the code design, think about writing some unit tests, think about logging all of your meetings, think about pair programming together, think about documenting all of your process on Discord. That combined is about 4 times, 5 times the weight of does everything work? The client meeting is focused on the design, right? Even if you don't have all of the features working yet, doesn't matter. The only things I'm looking for in the client meeting, professionalism, how are you holding yourself? Are you engaged and actively participating in that? Is there participation across the board? And how intuitive to use is your application? Have you really thought through the design of the interface? That's it. So again, a lot of focus that I've seen on getting those features working. And I think grades for sprint 1 have been suffering because of it. And as I've mentioned before, I will be curbing everything because I want the effort that's been put into this to be rewarded on that position. I'm still working with Hunter to figure out exactly what your grades are going to look like, but I have the baseline grades for the product that was submitted.
What a crisp $1 bill will change your.
I got 23 cents in my pocket.
Yeah.
I can fork over 1 cent.
Well, I can give you a scratch it that's worth $2.
One whole Bitcoin.
You will find that it is very difficult to sway me. I hold myself to too high of a moral standard to be easily swayed.
Yeah, I already
Sounds
tried,
like 3 scratch offs.
I already tried Tony too. He wasn't having it.
Yeah, you know. So I've talked to a lot of people individually. I hold this class like this for many reasons. And I'm happy to talk about those individually on the side to justify why we're doing things the way that we're doing them, but I see a very high stress level across the class, I think almost to a person. I know this is incredibly stressful. I know that it is, but I think the analogy that I've been using over the last couple of days is you're a car stuck in the snow at the bottom of a hill. You're putting a ton of effort in the wrong ways into a project where that effort does not directly translate into either a learning outcome for you or really a grade in the class. So if this is a concern for you, your workload is a concern for you, come talk to me. I'd be happy to talk about how to optimize your process to get the most out of what I'm trying to teach in the class, which again is about the process more so than the end result. And also make sure that you are pulling your weight, because the big thing that can wreck you in this class is if you are not pulling your weight. If there are peer reviews that are dragging you significantly down. And I need to reach out to a few people in the class because there are some concerns about that. There are some people who are not pulling their weight, and your grade on sprint 1 will not be reflective of what your group's grade is. You probably know who you are. If you're asking yourself, is that me? I don't know, it's probably not.
In my defense, Robert doesn't like me. Completely unfair.
I didn't see anything really that was one person having a grudge against someone, or if so, I've worked very hard to isolate and correct those cases. And I'm talking individually to those people if that is a concern. So I'm doing everything that I can here to be as fair to you as possible. I don't want to take up too much more of your work time, but I am advocating for you. I see all of the effort that you all are putting into this. It's an incredible amount of effort. I do see that, and your end grade will reflect the effort that you put in. I think I have seen people working harder in this sprint one than I have ever historically seen in any version of this class that I have ever taught. So people should be proud of that. Your grades will reflect that, even if there was quite a lot of wheel spinning. That is part of the learning process. You're gonna get some feedback that says you put a lot of this effort into some places that didn't really matter. That's a learning outcome. I don't want that to be a large, it's not gonna be held against you at the end of the class as a grade, but I want you to get that feedback so that you get a sense of how can I maximize how my effort translates into a good product. And we all look defeated. I really am very proud of all of you. I know how stressful this has been, but from my perspective, this has been a very big success. Despite all of the stress, despite everything that has gone on, I think people are learning a lot. And that is what I care about in this class. You must experience the kinds of failures that are common amongst computer science graduates to be able to graduate and be able to have a leg up on everyone else who's graduating. You've already experienced these things, and that will be very useful to you as you move into industry. And I'm not going to hold it against you in your final grades. Keep applying the effort, try to work better as a team. I think that was a big shortcoming in sprint one. A lot of teams are really struggling to work well together. And I would expect that as a bunch of introverts who are suddenly forced to work together on a big project. So again, it's expected. Your grades will probably not be the best grades that you've ever seen for a sprint one, but do know a curve is coming. I will be happy with these grades by the time they're in the grade books. And I can give you a sense of kind of what I'm thinking at any particular point in time. If the class ended today, here's what I'd be doing to your final grade, approximately. So I don't want people to feel like they're failing the class, even though they feel like this has been rough. All right, I think I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get going on designing how this is going to work. Is there a, question?
No, that was preemptive.
Yeah.
We want to-
Go first. Is there any other team that really wants to meet with me at the beginning? This team got to go first last time, but if there's another group that really wants to meet with me right away for a design. You guys, everyone wants to meet. I'll prioritize these three teams then in some order.
You can also go like later today.
Yeah, that is true. Coming later as well. Yeah, so go ahead and get started. And I will work with the groups that want to. I'm also gonna be stopping the recording now because I wanted to get this on recording. I will post this later. As well as the fast meeting, but yeah, let's get some work done.
So